We're grateful for having such amazing viewers like you. Tell us, which part of the world are you watching from today? Morning coffee or evening wind down? Share below. Now, let's dive into today's story. Chapter 1. Stolen Moments. Russell Vaughn adjusted his cufflinks, staring at his reflection in the mirror. At 35, he'd built a reputation as one of Boston's most respected architects, known for his innovative designs and unwavering principles. The scar above his right eyebrow, a souvenir from his military service, only enhanced his intimidating presence. He wasn't a man who compromised, especially on loyalty. The call from his friend Parker had come at an inconvenient time, just hours before his wedding reception, but the urgency in Parker's voice convinced Russell to meet him at the hotel bar. "This better be important," Russell said, sliding onto the bar stool next to Parker. Parker, a private investigator who'd served alongside Russell in Afghanistan, looked uncomfortable. "I wouldn't be here if it wasn't. Remember when you hired me to look into Olivia's family after you got engaged? I found something recent." Russell's jaw tightened. "Recent as in yesterday." Parker slid a manila envelope across the bar. "Her cousin Nolan visited her hotel room. Stayed for 3 hours. They're close. Always have been. Not like this, Russ." Parker ordered another drink. "I'm sorry, man, but you should know before you go through with this." Russell opened the envelope, and his world collapsed around him. The photos showed Olivia and her cousin Nolan in her hotel room, locked in an embrace that left no room for familial interpretation. The timestamp showed 11:23 p.m., less than 24 hours ago. "There's more," Parker said quietly. "I did some digging after I saw this. They have a history, long before you." Russell stared at his wedding ring. The gold band felt like a shackle now. "How long?" "Since they were teenagers. On and off for years, including while you were dating." Russell remembered how Olivia had gushed about her protective cousin Nolan when they first met 3 years ago. How Nolan had given Russell a cold handshake at family gatherings. How he'd catch them whispering and laughing at inside jokes during holidays. "The wedding starts in an hour," Russell said finally, his voice unnaturally calm. "I need you to do something for me." Olivia Preston, soon to be Olivia Vaughn, looked radiant in her wedding dress. At 32, she possessed a graceful beauty that turned heads, with hazel eyes that changed color depending on her mood and auburn hair that fell in loose waves down her back. To the outside world, she was marrying the perfect man, successful, handsome, and devoted. Only Olivia knew the complicated truth. Her relationship with her cousin Nolan Mitchell had always existed in the shadows, a forbidden connection they'd tried and failed to break numerous times over the years. Last night had been a mistake, one final goodbye before she committed fully to Russell. The ceremony had gone flawlessly. Russell had been stoic but loving, his vows making her mother cry. Now, during their reception at the elegant Harrington estate, Olivia was finally beginning to relax. Perhaps she really could leave the past behind and build a life with Russell. "May I have this dance?" Nolan appeared beside her, champagne in hand, his blue eyes, so similar to her own that relatives often commented on the family resemblance, gleaming with mischief. "I don't think that's a good idea," Olivia said carefully, glancing toward Russell, who was deep in conversation with her father across the room. "One dance between cousins? Nobody will think twice." Nolan's smile held a challenge. For old time's sake, against her better judgment, Olivia let Nolan lead her onto the dance floor. At 34, Nolan had the same charisma that had captivated her when she was 16, tall, athletic, with a disarming smile that made people trust him instantly. His construction company had made him wealthy, though rumors of cut corners and shady deals followed him like shadows. As they swayed to the music, Nolan pulled her closer than propriety allowed between cousins. "You look beautiful," he whispered, his breath warm against her ear. "I can't believe you went through with it." "Nolan, please. It's done." His grip tightened. "You'll always be mine first, not his. We both know that." The familiar thrill ran through her, the dangerous, forbidden pleasure of their connection. Without thinking, she smirked and nodded slightly, the gesture small but damning. Neither of them noticed Russell approaching, microphone in hand, his expression unreadable. Chapter 2. The Revelation. Russell Vaughn had never considered himself a vengeful man. In Afghanistan, he'd seen what revenge did to people, how it hollowed them out, leaving nothing but a shell. But watching his new wife dance with her cousin, seeing her subtle nod at Nolan's possessive words, something fundamental shifted inside him. Ladies and gentlemen, Russell's voice echoed through the ballroom, causing conversations to halt and heads to turn. I'd like to thank you all for coming to celebrate with us today. Olivia turned, her smile faltering when she saw the microphone in Russell's hand and the cold determination in his eyes. Marriage is built on honesty, Russell continued, his voice steady. On trust, on fidelity. He paused, scanning the crowd of friends and family members. Which is why I'd like to show everyone the wedding gift my wife and her cousin gave me. Confusion rippled through the crowd. Olivia froze mid-dance, her hand still on Nolan's shoulder. Russell nodded to Parker, who stood by the audiovisual equipment. The lights dimmed, and a projection screen descended from the ceiling, an unplanned addition to the reception decorations. Russell, Olivia's voice trembled as she stepped away from Nolan. What are you doing? The first image appeared on the screen, Olivia entering her hotel room the night before their wedding. Then Nolan following 20 minutes later. The timestamps were clearly visible in the corner of each security camera image. I believe in evidence, Russell said, his voice devoid of emotion. In facts, in truth. The next images weren't explicit, but they told the story clearly enough. Embraces that lingered too long. Nolan pushing Olivia against the hotel room wall, their shadows merging behind the curtains. The final image showed Nolan leaving at 2:17 a.m., adjusting his clothes. A collective gasp filled the room. Olivia's mother swayed dangerously, supported by her husband. Nolan's wife Jessica covered her mouth, tears streaming down her face. I discovered that my bride and her cousin have been carrying on an affair since they were teenagers, Russell announced, his voice growing stronger. Including yesterday, the night before our wedding. You have me follow? Olivia whispered, her face ashen. No, Russell said quietly, finally looking directly at her. I had your family investigated before I proposed. Standard procedure for a man in my position. I found nothing then. Parker was simply completing his final report when he captured these images. Call it unfortunate timing. Nolan stepped forward, hands raised placatingly. Look, man, this isn't what it looks like. We were just what, Nolan? Russell's voice cut like steel. Discussing construction plans in her hotel room at midnight? Planning my surprise party? Please enlighten us all. Jessica Mitchell approached her husband, her voice breaking. How could you? With your own cousin? The room descended into chaos. Accusations, denials, tears. Russell stood in the center, immovable, as Olivia's carefully constructed world collapsed around her. There's more, Russell said, raising the microphone again. The room gradually quieted. My investigations revealed something else. Something I wasn't looking for, but found nonetheless. The screen changed to show documents, bank statements, property deeds. It seems Nolan's construction company has been funding its operations through an interesting arrangement with Olivia. For the past 5 years, while she worked as financial advisor for Summit Investments, she's been directing her clients' money into her cousin's failing projects. Fresh shock rippled through the crowd. Olivia's boss, who'd been invited to the wedding, stood abruptly. I have provided copies of all this evidence to the relevant authorities, Russell continued calmly. They should be arriving shortly to ask some questions. As if on cue, several serious-looking individuals entered the ballroom, their badges visible. Russell placed the microphone on a nearby table and removed his wedding ring, placing it beside the microphone. The honeymoon to Bali has been canceled, he said, straightening his tie. I believe you'll both be otherwise occupied. Chapter 3. The Architect of Pain. 3 years earlier, Russell Vaughn had fallen hard for Olivia Preston. They'd met at a charity gala, where she'd approached him about a donation to her organization supporting veterans. Her passion for the cause and her quick intelligence had impressed him immediately. Their courtship had been a whirlwind. Dinners at exclusive restaurants, weekends in the Hamptons, a magical Christmas in Vienna. Russell, always cautious, had found himself swept up in the romance of it all. For the first time since his return from Afghanistan, the nightmares had subsided. Olivia made him feel whole again. The first time he met Nolan had been at Thanksgiving dinner with Olivia's family. Something about the way Nolan had hugged Olivia set off warning bells in Russell's mind. His hand lingering too low on her back, their embrace lasting a beat too long. But Russell had dismissed it as his own paranoia, a product of the hypervigilance that had kept him alive in combat. They grew up together, Olivia's mother had explained when she caught Russell watching them. More like siblings than cousins. They've always been inseparable. Russell had nodded and smiled, but the unease remained. Over the next 2 years, he noticed other things. How Olivia's phone would buzz late at night with texts she'd quickly delete. How she'd suddenly need to run errands when Nolan was in town. How they seemed to communicate in half-sentences and meaningful glances at family gatherings. A month before proposing, Russell had hired Parker to investigate Olivia's family. It wasn't personal, he told himself. It was what any prudent businessman would do before merging his life with someone else's. The investigation had found nothing suspicious, and Russell had proposed with a 5-carat diamond ring on a sailboat in Nantucket Sound. Now, as the wedding reception dissolved into chaos around him, Russell retreated to a quiet corner of the venue. Parker joined him, handing him a tumbler of whiskey. "You okay?" Parker asked. Russell took a long sip. "I will be." The financial fraud. "That was a surprise to me, too," Parker admitted. "I only found it last night while going through her emails. There's a paper trail a mile wide. People get careless when they think they're untouchable," Russell said, watching as federal agents separated Olivia and Nolan for questioning. Jessica Mitchell approached them, her makeup streaked with tears. "Did you know?" "Before today." Russell shook his head. "Not about you." "I'm sorry." Jessica's laugh was bitter. "Don't be. I suspected something. Just not this." She gestured toward Olivia. "Not her. They really thought they were clever, didn't they?" Russell studied Jessica, a kindergarten teacher who'd supported Nolan through business school, who believed in his dreams. Another casualty of Olivia and Nolan's selfishness. "What will you do now?" Russell asked her. Jessica straightened her shoulders. "Divorce him. Rebuild." "You." "The same." Russell finished his whiskey. "Though I think I'll add a third step." "What's that?" Russell's smile was cold. "Ensure they never recover." As Olivia was escorted from the ballroom by federal agents, her eyes found Russell's across the room. The plea in them was clear. "Help me." Russell raised his empty glass in a mock toast and turned away. The wedding was over. The war had just begun. Chapter 4. Cold Calculations. 6 months after the wedding turned nightmare, Russell Vaughn sat in his penthouse office, reviewing the latest reports from his investigators. After the initial arrests, both Olivia and Nolan had been released on bail, their expensive lawyers working tirelessly to postpone their trials and discredit evidence. What they didn't know was that Russell had only revealed the tip of the iceberg at the wedding reception. The past 6 months had been spent meticulously gathering more evidence, following money trails, and identifying every person Olivia and Nolan had ever wronged. "Mr. Vaughn," his assistant's voice came through the intercom. "Ms. Mitchell is here to see you." Russell closed the file. "Send her in." Jessica Mitchell entered, looking markedly different from the broken woman at the wedding reception. Her blonde hair was cut in a sleek bob, her business attire crisp and professional. "Thank you for seeing me," she said, taking the offered seat across from Russell. "Your message said it was important." Jessica placed her own file on the desk. "Nolan's trying to hide assets before the divorce is finalized. My lawyer found these accounts, but we can't access them without proof they're connected to him." Russell flipped through the documents. "These are shell companies. Similar structure to what they use for the client fraud." "I thought you might recognize the pattern," Jessica said with a grim smile. "I want what's legally mine after 12 years of marriage, but more than that, I want him to have nothing." Russell studied her. "Revenge isn't always the answer, Jessica," says the man who exposed his wife's affair at their wedding reception. Russell conceded the point with a slight nod. "What exactly are you proposing?" "A partnership," Jessica said. "I have insider knowledge about Nolan's business practices that go back years. Things I witnessed, conversations I overheard. You have the resources and connections to do something with that information. And what do you get out of this partnership? Jessica's eyes hardened. Justice, financial security, and the satisfaction of watching him lose everything, just like I did. Russell considered her offer. Jessica Mitchell was intelligent, motivated by a righteous anger he understood all too well, and she had access to information his investigators might never uncover. All right, he said finally, but we do this my way. Methodical, legal, nothing that can come back on either of us. Jessica's smile was razor-sharp. I wouldn't have it any other way. Across town, in a considerably less impressive apartment, Olivia Preston sat across from her lawyer, absorbing the latest bad news. They've frozen all your accounts, Lorraine Davies explained, removing her glasses. The prosecution has convinced the judge that any funds might be proceeds from the alleged financial crimes. This is ridiculous, Olivia said, pacing the small living room. It was Nolan's idea. All of it. I just helped with some introductions. The evidence suggests otherwise, Lorraine replied carefully. The emails we've seen show you actively recruiting clients whose funds were then diverted to Mitchell construction projects. Olivia collapsed onto the sofa. Her designer clothes and luxury handbags had been sold one by one to pay legal fees. The prestigious financial firm had fired her immediately after her arrest. Former friends crossed the street to avoid her. This is Russell's doing, she said bitterly. He won't stop until he's destroyed me. Mr. Vaughn provided the initial evidence, Lorraine acknowledged, but the federal prosecution has built their own case. They're offering a deal if you testify against your cousin. Olivia laughed humorlessly. Throw Nolan under the bus? He'd never forgive me. You're facing up to 15 years, Olivia. Nolan would do the same to you in a heartbeat. Before Olivia could respond, her phone buzzed with a text from Nolan. Need to talk. Meet at the usual place. 8 p.m. Their usual place was a small jazz club in Cambridge where they'd first crossed the line from cousins to something more forbidden when she was 16 and he was 18. The owners had changed over the years, but the back booth where they'd shared their first kiss remained the same. I'll think about it, Olivia told her lawyer, already planning what she would wear to meet Nolan. Some habits were harder to break than others. Chapter 5. The Spider's Web. The jazz club was nearly empty when Olivia arrived. Tuesday nights were slow, which was precisely why she and Nolan had chosen it for their meetings over the years. Less chance of being recognized together. Nolan was already in their booth, nursing a scotch, his once immaculate appearance now slightly disheveled. The stress of the past months had etched new lines around his eyes. You look terrible, Olivia said, sliding into the booth across from him. You don't look much better, he retorted, pushing a glass of white wine toward her. Your lawyer call you today? Olivia nodded. They're offering a deal if I testify against you. Same here, Nolan said with a bitter laugh. They're playing us against each other. It's Russell. He's behind this. Olivia sipped her wine. The initial evidence wasn't enough for him. He's still digging. Nolan leaned closer. We need to strike back. Find something on him. Everyone has skeletons. Olivia shook her head. Not Russell. He's too careful, too controlled. Nobody's perfect. What about his time in Afghanistan? Those military records are sealed for a reason. Olivia hesitated. He never talked about it. Just nightmares sometimes. Waking up screaming names I didn't recognize. There's our angle, Nolan said, excitement creeping into his voice. I have a contact who might be able to access those records. If there's something there, something he did, we could use it as leverage. Blackmail? That's your solution. You have a better idea? The prosecution has emails, bank transfers. My company is bankrupt. Jessica is taking everything else in the divorce, and you're selling designer purses to make rent. We're running out of options, Liv. Olivia considered her cousin's words. She'd loved Russell once, or thought she had. But that man had disappeared the moment he picked up that microphone at their wedding reception, replaced by a cold, calculating stranger intent on her destruction. All right, she agreed reluctantly. See what your contact can find. But be careful if Russell catches us digging into his past. He won't, Nolan assured her, reaching across the table to squeeze her hand. We just need one piece of leverage, something bad enough that he'll back off to keep it quiet. Neither of them noticed the woman at the bar, nursing a drink and discreetly angling her phone to capture their conversation. Back in his penthouse, Russell reviewed the audio recording Jessica had sent him. The quality was excellent. Every word of Olivia and Nolan's conversation clearly audible. Military records? Parker said, frowning as they listened. That could be problematic. Only if there was anything to find, Russell replied calmly. My service record is exemplary. The classified missions were all sanctioned operations. Still, the fact they're looking into it means they're desperate. Desperate people make mistakes. Russell nodded thoughtfully. Let them chase ghosts. Meanwhile, we'll continue with the plan. He turned to Jessica, who sat rigid in her chair. Well done at the club. They didn't suspect a thing. Jessica's expression was conflicted. It feels wrong somehow. Spying on them. Having second thoughts? Russell asked, studying her carefully. No, Jessica said after a moment. Just not used to this world of surveillance and deception. Unlike some people, apparently. Russell understood her meaning. Unlike Olivia and Nolan, who have been living double lives for years. The next phase begins tomorrow, Russell said, closing his laptop. Lorraine Davies will present the prosecution's latest offer to Olivia. And your divorce attorney will suddenly discover new evidence of Nolan's hidden assets. And then, Jessica asked. Russell's smile didn't reach his eyes. Then we watched them turn on each other. Chapter 6, Betrayal Begets Betrayal. The conference room at the federal prosecutor's office felt suffocating. Olivia sat beside her lawyer, facing Assistant U.S. Attorney Marissa Chun, whose reputation for ruthless prosecution of white-collar crime had earned her the nickname the Executioner among Boston's legal community. Ms. Preston, Chun began, sliding a folder across the table. We've uncovered additional evidence linking you to 6 more fraudulent investment schemes. The potential sentence has just increased to 25 years. Olivia's hands trembled as she reviewed the documents. Emails she'd forgotten writing. Bank transfers she'd authorized. Client meetings where she'd specifically recommended Nolan's construction projects as guaranteed returns. This is just a fraction of what we have, Chun continued. But we're still willing to offer the same deal. Testify against Nolan Mitchell, and we'll recommend 7 years, eligible for parole in 5. Lorraine squeezed Olivia's arm. We should consider the offer, given this new evidence. Olivia's mind raced. 25 years. She'd be nearly 60 when released. Her life, everything she'd worked for gone. What exactly would I need to testify to? She asked finally. Chun smiled thinly. That Mitchell was the mastermind. That he coerced you into using your position to direct client funds to his projects. That he threatened you when you wanted to stop. None of that is true, Olivia protested weakly. It was mutual. We planned it together. Are you sure about that? Chun pushed another document toward her. This is a statement from Mitchell's attorney from yesterday. He claims you were the architect of the entire scheme, that you manipulated him through your unique relationship. Olivia stared at the document in disbelief. Nolan was blaming her? After all they'd been through together? He's lying, she whispered. Maybe, Chun acknowledged. But his story is consistent with the evidence. And it's better for the jury. The naive businessman manipulated by his seductive, financially savvy cousin. Ms. Chun, Lorraine interjected. May we have the room for a moment? Once alone with her client, Lorraine spoke bluntly. He's thrown you to the wolves, Olivia. Take the deal. Olivia's shock gave way to cold rage. After everything she'd sacrificed for Nolan, her integrity, her career, her marriage to a good man, he betrayed her at the first opportunity. I'll take the deal, she said when Chun returned. And I have more to offer than just testimony. I know where all the bodies are buried. Nolan Mitchell faced his own reckoning across town. His divorce attorney looked grim as he delivered the news. Mrs. Mitchell's legal team has uncovered offshore accounts in Belize and the Cayman Islands. The judge has frozen those assets as well, pending the outcome of the divorce proceedings. That's impossible, Nolan sputtered. Those accounts were untraceable. His attorney gave him a disappointed look. Apparently not. And your reaction just confirmed their existence, which I was still hoping to deny. Nolan slumped in his chair. Those accounts contained nearly $12 million, his emergency fund, his ticket to a new life once this legal nightmare was behind him. There's more, his attorney continued reluctantly. Your cousin has accepted a deal with the prosecution. She'll be testifying against you next month. She wouldn't, Nolan said, but even as the words left his mouth, doubt crept in. Hadn't he just done the same to her? What did she tell them? Everything, apparently, including details about transactions not previously known to the prosecution. Your exposure has effectively doubled. Nolan's phone buzzed with a text. Unknown number. Meeting your contact about Vaughn's military records tonight was a mistake. Check the news tomorrow. Cold dread washed over him. He had indeed met with a shady hacker the previous night, passing him an envelope of cash in exchange for promises to access Russell's classified service record. I need to make a call, Nolan said urgently, standing. His attorney frowned. To whom? Almost all your communications are being monitored as a condition of your bail. My cousin, Nolan said grimly. We need to present a united front or we're both finished. But when he tried Olivia's number, it went straight to voicemail. His text remained undelivered. It was as if she'd vanished completely. In his luxurious office, Russell Vaughn watched the surveillance feed showing Nolan's mounting panic. Beside him, Jessica observed dispassionately. You were right, she said. They turned on each other immediately. People reveal their true nature under pressure, Russell replied. All we did was apply the pressure. What happens tomorrow? Jessica asked. The text about the news? Russell smiled coldly. Nolan's contact was one of Parker's associates. Instead of finding dirt on me, he's been feeding information to the FBI about Nolan's attempt to hack classified military records. A federal offense all its own. Will they arrest him? Oh, yes. And violate his bail conditions in the process. Russell closed the surveillance feed. By this time tomorrow, Nolan Mitchell will be in federal custody with no possibility of release before trial. And Olivia will be in witness protection, preparing to testify against the cousin she once couldn't live without. Jessica's expression was troubled. Is it enough? After what they did to us? Russell considered her question seriously. No, he said finally. It's not enough. But it's a start. Chapter 7. The Price of Betrayal. 1 year had passed since the wedding that never was. Boston winters had a way of stripping everything bare, revealing the stark reality beneath the facade, much like Russell's revenge had done to Olivia and Nolan's lives. Nolan Mitchell, once the charismatic construction magnate, now shuffled into the courtroom in an orange jumpsuit, his hands and feet shackled. The attempted access of classified military records had indeed violated his bail conditions, as Russell predicted. The past year had been spent in pretrial detention at a federal facility. From his seat in the back of the courtroom, Russell observed the proceedings dispassionately. Today was Olivia's day to testify, the culmination of months of preparation with the prosecution. When she entered, Russell barely recognized her. Gone was the confident, stylish woman he'd once loved. This Olivia moved cautiously, her designer clothes replaced by a modest gray suit that hung loosely on her frame. She avoided looking at Nolan, keeping her eyes fixed on the prosecutor. As she took the oath, Olivia finally glanced toward the gallery and froze when she spotted Russell. The blood drained from her face. She hadn't expected him to be there, witnessing her public humiliation. Ms. Preston, Assistant U.S. Attorney Chun began, please describe for the court how your relationship with the defendant, Nolan Mitchell, led to the fraudulent investment scheme that defrauded clients of over $20 million. Olivia detailed everything. Their illicit relationship beginning in their teens, how it continued through her engagement and marriage to Russell, how Nolan had first suggested using her position to direct client funds to his struggling construction projects. He said it would just be temporary. Olivia testified, her voice barely audible, that the projects would succeed and we'd return the money before anyone noticed. But each project failed, requiring more investment to cover the previous losses. And did Mr. Mitchell threaten you when you expressed doubts? Chun asked. Olivia hesitated, glancing at Nolan. whose expression had hardened into hatred. Yes, she said finally. He threatened to expose our relationship to my family, to Russell, to everyone. He said we were in too deep to stop. Russell knew this was a lie, part of the deal Olivia had struck with the prosecution. From the surveillance at the jazz club, it was clear their criminal enterprise had been a partnership. But the lies served his purposes, so he let it stand. When cross-examination began, Nolan's attorney attacked Olivia's credibility and character. Isn't it true that you maintained an inappropriate relationship with your own cousin for nearly 20 years? That you continued this relationship through your engagement and into your marriage with Russell Vaughn? Yes, Olivia admitted, tears streaming down her face. And isn't it true that you were the financial expert who structured these investments, who knew exactly how to manipulate accounts to avoid detection? Objection, Chen called out, badgering the witness. Sustained, the judge ruled. But the damage was done. Olivia's reputation, whatever remained of it, was being systematically destroyed in public record, broadcast on local news, detailed in newspaper articles. Her cooperation with the prosecution would reduce her sentence, but her life, as she knew it, was over. After the day's proceedings concluded, Russell found himself face to face with Olivia in the courthouse corridor. Security guards flanked her, preparing to return her to the safe house where she was being kept until the trial concluded. "Why are you here?" she asked, her voice hollow. "Haven't you done enough?" Russell studied the woman he'd once planned to spend his life with. "I wanted to see it through," he said simply. "You've won, Russell. We're both ruined. Are you satisfied now?" Russell considered her question. "I never wanted this, Olivia. You did this to yourself. To us. It wasn't supposed to be like this," she whispered. "I did love you. In my way. Your way wasn't enough." Russell stepped aside to let her pass. "Goodbye, Olivia." As she was led away, Russell felt no triumph, no satisfaction, only a cold certainty that justice was being served. Not by the courts, but by his own hand. Chapter 8. Collateral Damage. The fallout extended far beyond Olivia and Nolan. Like stones thrown into a pond, their actions had created ripples affecting countless lives. In a small conference room at the FBI field office, Russell met with several of Olivia's former clients, people who had trusted her with their life savings, retirement funds, children's college accounts, people who had lost everything. "The receiver has recovered approximately 30% of the missing funds," Russell explained to the group. "My foundation will be covering another 40%. "Why would you do that?" asked Eleanor Winslow, a 70-year-old widow who had invested her late husband's life insurance with Olivia. "You're not responsible for what she did." "No," Russell acknowledged, "but I brought her into your lives. I vouched for her character at client events. That carries its own responsibility." What Russell didn't say was that this gesture, committing nearly $8 million to help Olivia's victims, was also part of his revenge. He wanted her to know that he was repairing the damage she had caused, that he was strong enough to clean up her messes. It was a power move disguised as charity. After the meeting, Jessica Mitchell waited for him in the lobby. "That was a generous thing you did," she said as they walked to his car. "It was the right thing," Russell replied. "How did your meeting go?" Jessica's smile was satisfied. "The divorce is final. I get the house, half his remaining legitimate assets, and most importantly, full custody of our daughter." Russell nodded. In the chaos of destroying Olivia and Nolan, it was easy to forget that a 10-year-old girl was caught in the crossfire. Madeline Mitchell had lost her father to prison and nearly lost her mother to depression in the aftermath of the scandal. "How is Maddie handling everything?" Russell asked as they drove through the city. Jessica's expression softened. "Better than expected. Children are resilient. She asks about him sometimes, but the therapist says that's normal." "And you? How are you handling everything?" Jessica was silent for a moment. Over the past year, their partnership had evolved into something more complex than revenge co-conspirators. Not quite friendship, not quite romance, but something built on mutual understanding and respect. "I'm rebuilding," she said finally. "My new counseling practice is doing well. The divorce settlement gives us financial security. But sometimes I wake up at night wondering if we went too far." Russell's hands tightened on the steering wheel. They betrayed us in the worst possible way. Jessica, they deserved everything they got. Did Maddie deserve to lose her father? Did Olivia's elderly parents deserve to have their retirement fund wiped out when her legal fees exceeded her resources? Collateral damage, Russell said, but the words sounded hollow even to his own ears. That's a military term, Jessica observed. Acceptable losses in pursuit of a strategic objective. Is that how you see all this? As a war? Russell pulled the car into a parking space and turned to face her. When Olivia and Nolan betrayed us, they declared war. I just finished what they started. Jessica studied him, her expression troubled. The thing about war, Russell, is that it changes everyone involved, even the victors. In his cell at the Federal Detention Center, Nolan Mitchell received a visitor, his first in months, since his former business associates and friends had abandoned him one by one. You have 15 minutes, the guard announced, leaving Nolan alone with his attorney. The verdict will come down next week, the lawyer said without preamble. It doesn't look good. The prosecution's case is airtight. Because my own cousin sold me out, Nolan said bitterly. Mr. Mitchell, I need you to understand the gravity of your situation. You're facing up to 30 years. There's still time to consider a plea deal. Nolan laughed humorlessly. What's the point? My company is gone. My wife divorced me. My daughter doesn't answer my letters. What exactly am I preserving my freedom for? The attorney slid a document across the table. This arrived at my office yesterday. I'm legally obligated to share it with you. Nolan scanned the document, his face paling. This is from my daughter's school. They're revoking her scholarship. Apparently, the school foundation recently received a significant donation from Vaughn Architects, with the stipulation that any relatives of yours should be disqualified for financial aid. Nolan crumpled the paper in his fist. He's going after my daughter now? That's crossing a line. There's more, the attorney said grimly. Your mother's assisted living facility is under new ownership, the Vaughn Foundation. Her lease isn't being renewed. He can't do this. Legally, he can. There's nothing explicit connecting these actions to your case. On paper, it's just business decisions. Nolan's mind raced. Russell Vaughn wasn't just content with destroying him and Olivia. He was systematically erasing any support system they might have, ensuring they would never recover, even after serving their sentences. Give me a meeting with the prosecutor, Nolan said abruptly. I have information they might be interested in. About other projects. Other investors. You mean other crimes? The attorney raised his eyebrows. That would only increase your own legal exposure. Not if I get immunity for cooperation. There are people involved who make me look like a saint. People with real money and power. It was a desperate gambit, but Nolan was a desperate man. If he couldn't fight Russell directly, perhaps he could at least ensure that others went down with him. What Nolan didn't know was that his attorney was on Russell's payroll, and every word of this conversation would be relayed back to him before the day was over. Chapter 9. Ashes and Rebirth. The gallery was packed for the sentencing hearing. After weeks of testimony, mountains of evidence, and failed last-minute attempts to implicate others, both Olivia Preston and Nolan Mitchell had been found guilty on all counts. Russell sat in the back row, watching the proceedings with a detached calm. The past 18 months of his life had been devoted to this moment, the culmination of his meticulously orchestrated revenge. Judge Harriet Langford, known for her no-nonsense approach to white-collar crime, addressed the defendants. The court has reviewed the pre-sentencing reports, character references, and statements from the victims. The scale and duration of this fraud scheme is among the most egregious this court has ever seen. Olivia stood rigid, eyes forward, refusing to show emotion. Nolan seemed resigned, occasionally glancing toward the gallery where his daughter sat with Jessica, the child's face deliberately hidden from her father's view. Ms. Preston, the judge continued, despite your cooperation with the prosecution, the fact remains that you violated the trust of clients who relied on your expertise and integrity. This court sentences you to 12 years in federal prison, with the possibility of parole after 8 years. A soft sob escaped Olivia's mother in the front row. Russell felt nothing. Mr. Mitchell, your role as instigator of this scheme, combined with your attempts to obstruct justice and your lack of remorse, warrants the maximum penalty. This court sentences you to 25 years in federal prison, with the possibility of parole after 18 years. As the defendants were led away, Russell caught Olivia's eye one final time. In her gaze, he saw not hatred or anger, but a profound emptiness, the look of someone who had lost everything, including herself. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed around the key players in the drama. Russell declined comment, moving purposefully toward his car, where Parker waited. "It's done," Parker said as they pulled away from the curb. "Almost," Russell replied. Their final stop was the cemetery where Russell's parents were buried. He hadn't told them much about Olivia when they were alive. His father's declining health and mother's dementia had limited meaningful conversations in their final years. But he felt a need to visit them now, to mark the end of this chapter in his life. As he placed flowers on their shared headstone, Russell noticed Jessica walking between the graves nearby, also carrying flowers. Their eyes met, and she approached slowly. "I thought I might find you here," she said. "Your assistant mentioned you had a standing appointment on Thursdays." "Visiting old ghosts," Russell acknowledged. "You?" "My sister," Jessica said softly. Today would have been her 35th birthday. They stood in companionable silence for a moment. "It's really over," Jessica said finally. "The sentencing, the legal battles, all of it." "Yes." "Do you feel different? Vindicated? Satisfied?" Russell considered her question carefully. "I feel unburdened, like I can finally think about the future instead of the past." And what does that future look like for Russell Vaughn? Russell hadn't allowed himself to think beyond his revenge for so long that the question caught him off guard. His architectural firm was thriving. His foundation was making a difference for veterans. Financially and professionally, his future was secure. But personally, the emptiness surprised him. "I don't know," he admitted. "What about you and Maddie?" Jessica's smile was cautiously optimistic. "We're healing, moving forward. Her therapist thinks the worst is behind us." They walked together toward the cemetery gates, the late afternoon sun casting long shadows across the grounds. "I have a confession," Jessica said suddenly. "I've been offered a position at a counseling center in Chicago. A fresh start, away from the gossip and the history. I'm considering taking it." Russell felt an unexpected pang at the thought of her leaving. Over the past 18 months, Jessica had become the one person who truly understood what he'd been through, who had walked the same path of betrayal and revenge. "You should take it," he said, meaning it. "You and Maddie deserve a new beginning. What about you? Will you stay in Boston?" Russell looked out over the city skyline in the distance. Boston had been his home, the place where he'd built his life, his career, his brief marriage. Now it felt haunted by memories he'd rather leave behind. "I've been offered a project in Seattle," he said. "A sustainable urban development. The kind of work I've always wanted to do." "You should take it," Jessica echoed his words with a smile. They reached their cars, pausing awkwardly. They weren't friends in the traditional sense, but they were bonded by shared trauma and mutual respect. "When do you leave?" Russell asked. "End of the month. Maddie will finish the school year here, then transfer." Russell nodded. "I wish you both the best, Jessica. Truly. And I you." She hesitated, then added, "Was it worth it? Everything we did." Russell thought about Olivia and Nolan, now beginning decades behind bars. About the destroyed lives, the collateral damage, the person he'd become in pursuit of justice. "They made their choices," he said finally. "We made ours." Jessica studied him for a long moment, then nodded, accepting his non-answer. "Goodbye, Russell." As he watched her drive away, Russell felt a chapter closing definitively. His revenge was complete. Justice, by his definition, had been served. Olivia and Nolan would never recover from what he'd done to them, just as he had never fully recovered from their betrayal. The difference was that Russell could still rebuild, still create, still find purpose. That perhaps was the most satisfying revenge of all, not just destroying those who had wronged him, but thriving in spite of them. Russell got into his car and drove toward the future, leaving the ashes of his past behind. And there you have it. Another story comes to an end. What did you think? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy this story, consider joining our community by subscribing. It means the world to us. For more stories like this one, check out the recommended videos on screen. And I'll see you there.